We're here in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. Behind me is the McAfee building. If you are a computer user, you know that they're an antivirus company. And today we're going to talk about microstamping. I'm Bill Caffrey, editorial advisor with the Handgun Club of America. Today we're going to talk about microstamping. You may or may not have heard of it. And what it really is a scheme to require firearms every time they fire a cartridge, the firing pin, the ejector, the extractor, to leave some sort of coded mark on the empty case so that police at the scene of a crime can look at that marking using forensics, determine what the serial number of the gun was that produced that case, and then go find out who the owner of the gun was and talk to them about the crime and find out if they're the person who perpetrated it. It's an interesting idea in theory, but it falls flat in several ways. First of all, when you use a firearm, every time you fire the weapon, it creates a lot of pressure and a lot of wear and tear. So very quickly, those markings can wear down. And as a matter of fact, California was the first state to implement a bill that says they were going to require microstamping on all firearms. The problem, of course, is it's a proprietary technique right now, and only one company has the technology to do it. So California, in the legislative process, said once that patent is expired, or more than one company is available to do this, then the law can take effect. So right now we don't have the microstamping in place. But even the reports that the legislature commissioned said the wear and tear on these things would reduce their effectiveness very rapidly, as few as 500 to 1,000 rounds. Secondly, if you know anything about your firearms, you know that parts can be swapped out, parts can be polished, and that will reduce the ability to imprint on those cartridge cases. So now you have a scene of the crime where, gee whiz, we've got markings, but we can't make them out. So all of the expense that the manufacturers had to include in the production of that gun are all for naught. Another thought that came to people's minds was, if you go to a range and pick up a dozen expended shell casings from 5 or 6 different guns, and then at the scene of a crime throw them all on the ground, now which gun was the murder weapon? That's going to create havoc for law enforcement. Lastly, the whole idea is flawed. Because while it might be nice to say they don't leave a gun at the scene of the crime, but we've got the serial number on the cartridge case. Again, cartridge cases are soft brass. You have a steel imprint going on to them, but after several hundred rounds, that imprint becomes illegible. So you're spending a lot of money. It's sort of like requiring all automobiles to have GPS in them, but then not having antennas on the roof that allow you to receive the signals. It's sort of an expense that's worth nothing. One of the other points about the whole microstamping issue is, if the police come up and they have the cartridge casing, they look at it, they say, okay, it's your gun. They come to talk to you and you say, I reported that stolen 3 weeks ago. So, or they find out when they get to their investigation, okay, we're going to go find this gun, and oh, it's on the hot sheet. It's already been reported stolen. We're back to square one. Who fired the shots? Nobody knows. The gun's stolen. It's out there on the street. It's been passed through 4 or 5 hands already. Again, where are we? Nowhere. And we've spent all this money to enforce a microstamping procedure. When this whole bill came forward in California, obviously California gun owners were a little bit on the outraged side. It was shown that you could defeat this whole thing with an emery board and a little finesse on the firing pin, or a little polishing of the extractor. This kind of thing is the idea of an anti-gun mentality, which is, we're going to make a law, we're going to require it, and we're going to require that the gun actually microstamp, but there's no way for you as a gun owner to look at that case, because the printing is so small, to determine that it's actually legible. You'd have to periodically take a gun in with a fired case and say, can you actually read this? And if not, then it has to go all the way back to the manufacturer for a brand new set of microstamped parts. So it's just another expensive way of making gun owners pay more money for their firearms. One of the other problems here is you have an installed base of millions of firearms across the country that don't have any microstamping. So what happens if one of those are used in a crime? Another problem, revolvers. Revolvers don't leave spent casings on the ground at the crime scene. So do they require microstamping? And if so, why? Because you're not going to find evidence at the crime scene when a revolver is used. Again, a nonsense regulation. California gun owners still face the problem that this bill has become law. It is suspended only because the proprietary nature of the technology required to put the microstamping on each gun. Once that patent expires, or once multiple companies are able to provide that technology, the bill now becomes active and will be implemented. So right now, California gun owners still face this issue of how do we repeal this law, but it's not real high on the priority list, simply because the company that has invented the microstamping shows no sign of allowing that patent to go freely. So we're safe for the time being. In the meantime, if this is coming to your state, or you hear it proposed in your state, you need to think about some of these concepts that I've talked about how easy it is to defeat. It doesn't work with revolvers. There's hundreds of thousands or millions of guns out there that don't have microstamping that can be used in crimes. So this isn't really going to solve anything, and it's just an expense that's going to be added on to the price of a gun. This is Bill Caffrey with Handgun Club of America.